What's up, guys? Welcome back to Simply FPL. It's time for another video of a team I just put together based on requests I got. So on the last video, I said, look, if you've got any requests for specific teams, specific ideas you're trying to manage into a starting 11 or starting 15, let me know. I'll give it a bash. This request I got several times. So Nisanth, can you do a video for differentials this season? Players not picked by most of the teams and not template. Well, Nisanth, yes, I can. And that's what I've done. So we'll go through the 15 players now. Before we go through them, I would just say it's not a good idea to have 15 differentials in one team. So what I've done is I've got a range of different values in each position. And what I'm going to do myself is maybe just pick one or two of these players just to kind of supplement the players which most people will have. And these will kind of be my differentials early on. So look, I've picked 15 differentials that if you wanted, you can afford within 100 million. They are within budget. But yeah, it wouldn't be a wise idea to have this as an entire team. A differential is often a gamble, which you're taking a bit of a risk to maybe get ahead because not many people have them. But taking 15 of those or even 10, even 5 of them a lot of the time is not a good idea. So yeah, take this team with a pinch of salt. But let's get into it. And sorry, actually, before we do, thanks everyone for the opinions on my thumbnail in the last video that I asked for. I don't think most people like the thumbnail, so I'm going to go back to the drawing board on that. If anyone is an expert at designing YouTube thumbnails on Canva or even Photoshop, anything like that, let me know. I'm more than happy to have a look at what you can do. But without further ado, here's the team. So game week 1 fixtures up there. They'll probably be in most of my videos because it's important to note that, look, you can pick 15 players, but you need to pick 15 players that have good fixtures early on. So you'll notice a theme in my video and pretty much most people's videos on YouTube is that you'll see a lot of the same teams and players coming up over and over again. Now, that's just because some teams have harder fixtures, like Norwich, for instance. It's very hard to pick a Norwich player because they've got 4 of the worst fixtures at the beginning of the season compared to likes of Liverpool, Manchester United, Everton, who have relatively easy fixtures at the beginning. So look, you're not going to see certain teams picked very often at all in some of these videos. So just take that into account as well. So the goalkeepers then. There they are. Meslier and Guita. Probably could have picked those two or guessed that I'd pick these two. So Meslier obviously had an unbelievable season at Leeds. Lots of clean sheets, lots of save points. The thing with Leeds this season is, can they do it for a second season? Like, second season syndrome is a very real thing. Teams kind of perform really well in one season, take their foot off the gas, they lose the motivation in the second. We're going to have to keep an eye on Leeds and whether or not that's going to happen. But looking at his price, look, he could have, like, 5 million's fair. He was obviously 4.5 last season. But yeah, everyone was hoping he wasn't going to be 5.5, and he's not. And then Guita, if you want a cheaper alternative, Crystal Palace, generally quite tight at the back. He's only selected by 6% of people. So look, if you're looking for a differential from the likes of Sanchez, Guita could be a shout. Like, he got 124 points last season, which isn't amazing. But as we said, with the differential, the gamble is like he could easily have a really good season. And these are the two lads that I'd take a punt on if I was going to do it. Defenders then. So I'd imagine most people don't have any of these, and it's going to show in the ownership. So yeah, let's just start with the most owned. So Connor Cody, 8% of teams owned, 4.5 million. Now Wolves, like they had a really bad season last year, but that doesn't mean they're going to have a really bad season this year. Like, even if they have an average season, having their main defender for 4.5 million could be a bargain. So he's definitely one to look out for. Like, again, he's not going to score you a hatful of goals. He barely leaves his own half. But if Wolves do have an okay season, now Jimenez is back, if they make a few signings and they become solid, the Wolves of old that we're used to, Connor Cody at 4.5 million could be an absolute bargain. And again, only owned by 8%. Dunk, someone who will get the occasional goal, finished on 130 points, so the highest scoring of all my defenders in this video. The one thing to mention is, look, Brighton did underperform. Their expected clean sheets was a lot higher than they got. So, look, there's a very good chance that if they even have an average season compared to what their XG and XG conceded is, those points would be a lot higher. So I think most people are going to take a punt on a Brighton defender and maybe even the defender and the goalkeeper. Most people are picking their £4.5 million players, the Lampteys of the world, the Sanchez's. But Dunk's got that aerial threat. Like, he could easily score a hatful of goals this season if Brighton have a good year. It could be one of the standout 5 millions, and look, 6.2% ownership. Holding, another £4.5 million defender. Not a huge amount to say. Like, we know he's going to get a lot of games. Arsenal, I think they're going to have a bad season. So look, this pick is kind of, again, if Arsenal have an okay first couple of games, I think everyone could be loading up on Holding. So if you believe Arsenal are going to have a good start to the season, Holding's your man. 4.2% owned. 105 points last season, despite the fact Arsenal had a terrible year. So £4.5 million defenders, if we can get triple figures out of them, we're often quite happy. And he did that last season, having pretty much a bad year. So yeah, keep an eye on that one. And then two absolute punts. So Reguilon, a lot of people are going to be put off by him. 5.5 million last year. Had a good start, so loads of people loaded up on him. His price shot up. He was like 5.8, 5.9 at one point. Then he just couldn't get into the team. Played like when he was playing, he got no returns. They weren't keeping clean sheets. His crosses were going. They weren't ending up in the net afterwards. I still think Reguilon's a really good player. I still think he's got potential to be one of their main wing backs this year. And if he is, and Tottenham have an okay season, like if they keep Harry Kane, 5 million, 2.2% owned. I actually think he could be one of the best bargains of any defender. I'm not going to take the punt early on myself because I like to play it safe in the first few weeks. But by week 3, week 4, if Tottenham are looking okay, I think Reguilon could definitely make it into my team. He should really be a £5.5 million defender as far as I'm concerned. And then finally, Godfrey, 1.4% owned. As an Everton fan, I just think, unless you're an Everton fan, you don't realise how good this lad is. He bossed our defence last season. Now, the only issue is we had a few other terrible defenders. Pickford, when he's got the Everton shirt on, is just not very good. We didn't keep many clean sheets. We were very, very open a lot of the time. We were trying to score goals rather than keep clean sheets. Rafa Benitez, the 0-0 man. Like, Godfrey, assuming I think he's maybe a centre-back by trade, but a lot of the time he was bombing up the right-hand side. Like, he's a goal threat. 5 million, expensive for an Everton defender potentially, but if you can't afford the Luca Digne's of the world, and you don't want to go down to a Mason Holgate who might not get many minutes, I think Godfrey's your man. He's definitely going to be one of Everton's main players this season. Midfield, a few names on there. A few names that I'm potentially excited about now. So Greenwood, 7.5 million. I've not put him in any of my drafts, but it's only because I've got so many good options in midfield. But 7.5 million, there's rumours that he could be one of the main guys playing up front. Like, they've got an aging Cavani, like Martial injured, out of favour perhaps. Rashford's obviously going to be injured the first few months. 7.5 million, I really think he's going to be in my team, even though he's not been in any of my videos yet. I just think I'm going to find a way to get him in. 3.8% owned. I mean, this, honestly, I'm shocked he's only 3.8% owned. 7.5 million. If he should be the price of a Rashford, realistically. That's my opinion. So, yeah, he's definitely going to be an enabler, and potentially a top-tier enabler. I mean, United have really easy fixtures beginning of the season. And I think I'm even talking myself into it more and more, even talking now. So, yeah, give him some thought. Mahrez. So, for me, one of Man City's best players. He doesn't get 90 minutes every week. So, it's one of those where, like, if he gets in the team a lot, he'll get a lot of points. Like, every time he plays, he seems to get a goal. It's just whether or not he plays. So, let's keep an eye on Man City. Pep Roulette is tough to work out, but Mahrez was so good at the back end of last season. He was one of their best players when the likes of De Bruyne and Sterling were struggling. 9 million. I think he's got great value. Yeah, keep an eye. Every season, the last 3 seasons, I want to have Mahrez, and I think I've had him in for a few weeks, but this season could be not his last chance, but like he's not really shone since his big move, to the point where he's the first name on the team sheet, and I just think there's a good chance it'll be this season. 3.7% owned. Harvey Barnes, do we need to say much? For Leicester, he was phenomenal. Their form kind of dipped when he got injured. So, yeah, 7 million, like absolute bargain if Leicester have an even okay season. So, look, all these lads are enablers. Like, you could have this entire midfield by its own right and just avoid the likes of the Salahs and the Brunos of the world if you had the balls to do it. But yeah, Harvey Barnes for me, he could be one of the top tips. Raheem Sterling, like, look, I'm just feeding off the Euros. Like, he's going to be one of Pep's main men. He always has been. He's added a few goals in the Euros. Like, if he kicks off the season in the same vein of form, I think everyone's going to get him. So, look, he's 3.2% owned. Big risk, but potential big reward. And that's going to be the same with Mane. So, he's a bit cheaper than Salah. Him and Salah do a similar job, but Salah on penalties usually makes him worthwhile. But since we're talking differentials, Mane is almost the ultimate differential. Like, everyone that doesn't have Salah last season or the season before would usually have a Mane. So yeah, he had to be squeezed in my team. 176 points last season. Not a nightmare, quite a lot for his price, but he could easily outscore Salah. So that's why he's got to be on the team sheet for me. Strikers then. Danny Ings, the lad everyone knows they should consider, but most people don't, and I'm one of them. Like, the thought of paying £8 million for a Southampton striker does pain me a bit, but when if he can remain fit, like if he avoids his injuries, he scores all their goals almost. That is an exaggeration, but he always seems to be involved. So yeah, he's worth consideration. I don't like it for me personally, but he's going to be the first name on the team sheet for Southampton if he's fit. And yeah, he's got a track record. It's just you have to deal with the frustration of him being injured, going off early, Southampton losing a game 5-0. Like, if you can ride that roller coaster, you'll also get to enjoy when he scores 2 goals in a game and 3% of people have him. Those are kind of the risks you're going to take with this sort of striker. And also, he's a similar price to the likes of like Calvert-Lewin, for instance, who comfortably outscored him last season. So just bear that in mind. Troy Deeney, Watford. I don't know a huge amount about Watford this season or who are going to be lined out up front, but assuming he's one of the main men who's on pens, 5.5 million. Like, I mean, you could even have him in as your third striker as the differential, who doesn't even play every week. He's on your bench most of the time. So yeah, not a lot to say. I don't know how many more years he's got in the Prem, but while he's there playing, 3.4% owned. Definitely one to consider. And then finally, Maupay, 2% owned. Like, do you know what it is? It's because Brighton had such a bad season last season. If they even had their expected season based on their XG and their XGC, Maupay would have had an absolute storming season. He'd be 8 million this season, but because they had such a underperformed and unlucky season based on the stats, that's why he's 6.5. That's why no one owns him. But there's no doubt he scores a lot of goals. So yeah, keep an eye on the friendlies over the next few weeks and see if he bangs them in. If he does, 6.5 million, you've got to throw him in there. And that's the team. So yeah, that comes in at just under 100 million. Fired through it. As ever, I talk a mile a minute. So if you've got any questions, drop them in the chat. Let me know what you think. Which differential do you like the look of most? And yeah, give me a few more ideas for videos. I've got a few kind of backed up and we'll go through them. They're somewhat enjoyable to make, kind of fiddling with the teams, give myself some new ideas for what I will eventually have. And once we get into August, I'll be a bit more focused on my own actual team and my own thought process behind what I'm picking and who I'm going to eventually end up starting in the first game. But for now, it's kind of okay, just testing and messing about. So yeah, drop those comments and we'll see you in the next video. Take it easy, guys.